Hi, I'm Leanne Thibodeau, and today I have a presentation prepared on assessment capable visible learning. This means helping students be part of their own learning. Students, they get to see and understand how they are doing and learn ways to progress. In this presentation, I will be referring to three ways to assess learning. There is assessment for learning, which is formative assessment. There is assessment as learning, which is metacognitive, and assessment of learning, which is summative assessment. Starting with assessment for learning, this provides ongoing feedback to students, which improves their learning process. While in practicum, I used observation, exit tickets, guided reading, asking questions, and quizzes. I took a picture of two exit tickets I used in math at the end of a lesson. Every day after school, I looked over them, and if I would see a student struggling, I would make sure to help them in math the following day to make sure they don't get behind or learn the wrong way. This is really good because errors in thinking are always caught right away. Another example I have for assessment for learning is guided reading, as I guide students through a story by asking questions tailored in specific areas where they are struggling. So the image in the text is really small, but I used the same story for two groups, but there were different goals. And this was on day one. And now this was day two with the same groups. And again, I tailored the questions where they were struggling. Now let's move forward to assessment as learning. Here, students assess themselves and uses self-reflection with this grade 4 skills development. Some examples I use in practicum are self-grading quizzes, reflection journals, group conversation, and peer teaching. Here is an example of a journal reflection I took a picture of in practicum. The students started learning about double bar graphs, and at the end of the lesson, they wrote a journal reflection. This allows students to actually think about the lesson and what they want to learn going forward. Here I have another example of assessment as learning. This is a photo of words a lot of students in the class were struggling with in their writing. I did a word study and gave all the students a sheet with the words spelled correctly, and they needed to correct their own work. This allows students to see what they did wrong, and then they can learn from it. So now we have, for the last type of assessment, we have assessment of learning. This is summative assessment, which evaluates students at the end of a learning period or like a unit. I use tests, presentation, and graded assignments while in practicum. Here, we were learning about lines and stanzas using descriptive poetry. They were not really interested in poetry, so we decided to use their watercolor painting from art to use to describe for their poem. I used a graded rubric looking at lines, stanzas, if they use descriptive words such as figurative language, and grammar. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the rubric I created in practicum, but this was a type of summative assessment. For my last example of assessment of learning, I have an end of unit test I created in math for double bar graphs. It was a good summary of what they learned. Also, here I have the rubric I created. Here the students know exactly how they are being graded with specific requirements, making it fair for all students. Every type of assessment I just talked about is in line with the Nova Scotia assessment policy. I make sure all types of assessment are valid, reliable, and fair. It promotes students' learning and focuses on using inclusive and equitable ways to check for learning, making sure every student is treated equally. And lastly, there is always ongoing feedback to students. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and please contact me with any questions or comments. Have a nice day, Natalie. Bye.